TV shows or movies, I guess, they can sometimes attempt to create music that is in a particular style without fully understanding what that style is. And when that happens, the music that results often sounds kind of corny or cheesy. That is not what's happening here at all. This feels extremely authentic. The feel, the horn writing, it's totally authentic and it sounds great. The trumpet section, especially like the lead, they're not nailing the parts, you know. I feel like there's a charm to that almost. It's real. It's a live take. It's gritty. I kind of dig that actually. The fact that it's not perfect. There sometimes can be, even with great bands. I mean, what would be an example? Maybe I don't know if some of you are familiar with like the Gordon Goodwin Big Fat Band. You want to talk about perfection, right? Like everything is just, all the parts are nailed, and the production quality is extremely high. As great as that band is, sometimes I feel like it kind of takes away from the grittiness of the big band sound. That's obviously up to interpretation, but I feel like here, the sort of grittiness and the realness and the very evidently live take, there's something cool about the imperfection. I kind of dig it. A little bit about kind of what's happening here, the form-wise. This is a 12-bar blues. And a lot of you may have picked up on that immediately, but it definitely is not just obviously a 12-bar blues, because some of the da-da, 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 some of those harmonic movements that are going on there are not purely indicative of the blues, and might throw you for a loop if you're not really listening for it. So that is what's happening here. It is a 12-bar blues. Okay, maybe that's, I'd have to go back and look, but I think that might be some sort of variation, maybe like an interlude thing. Really well written. The backgrounds and the horns as underneath the solo are super cool. I really dig this one rhythmic device that has been used a little bit unexpected. That is so sick. Okay, so like, I don't know, in my mind anyways, I'm expecting it to go, so like if you had on, it's a fairly common rhythmic thing and melodic thing to sort of wrap up a phrase, right? But here, we let that silence just pull a little bit more. We get this, and the fact that it just drops right on the downbeat and then goes, I think that hesitation there, where you're almost not expecting it, the hesitation of just being like, bang! It's so sick! By the way, just as a side note, I've been doing some research on Yoko Kanno to try to find out, you know, everything that I possibly can about her, and I was kind of annoyed to come across accusations of her stealing stuff, and there was a particular video that everybody was pointing to as like, ooh, this is the proof that she stole all this stuff. And I'm like, as usual, when there's accusations like this, it's probably from somebody who doesn't really know what they're talking about very much, and it's just like, don't put this thing that I thought that came before it, I knew about this before it, and I'm cool because I knew about something that apparently came before. It's stupid. It's just dumb. I understand if people who don't fully understand something and hear the similarities and not understand the difference between influence and blatant plagiarism, but plagiarism is literally the exact transference of something that already existed and just using it again and then taking credit for it. And that is not anything that happened here at all. Completely baseless. And I can hear the influences, but if you're going to point out the influences to these specific songs that you found that are magically, oh my god, this sounds sort of similar, and like, you're not going to point out that everything else that she has written and many other composers have written, everybody's influenced by something else. Everything I've ever written is influenced by something else. John Williams jacked Gustav Holst's entire like, that's just how this stuff works. It's not plagiarism, it's influence, and it's inspiration. Unless there's an actual stealing of a melody and a chord progression and just writing the same thing over again and taking credit for it, that would be what plagiarism is, but that's not what's happening here. I found that particularly annoyed by that because It's attempting to detract from the absolutely incredible work that Yoko Kanno has done in her career. Alright, moving on. Next tune we're going to look at, Bad Dog, No Biscuits. I don't care how bad my dog is, I'm probably still going to give him biscuits. Influences everywhere. It bears a lot of similarities to John Barry's work with the James Bond series, which is some of my favorite music from movies of all time. But also there's a little more hectic nature to it, if that makes any sense. I can certainly think of things that came after this that have got to be influenced by it in some way. I mean, certainly Michael Giacchino, I think that's how you say it. I'm going to say Giacchino because I don't remember the correct pronunciation, but Michael Giacchino, The Incredibles. This is kind of the same type of sound. It's that adventure, spy, yet action, thriller type of big band, jazz-based sound. It's just great. I mean, it's incredible. Ska, is that correct? This kind of feels like ska a little bit. That's that's so cool. I love the chaos. It's just so like, there's so much stuff going on. It feels very jam-like in a sense, and obviously like there's solos happening, but the backgrounds, the way they sort of interact with the rhythms, and it feels like a big pile of sound. It's great. This would be so fun to see live. The top comment on this video says it sounds like The Incredibles and James Bond had a baby. That's kind of what I meant. It's just got that vibe from those different styles, and I love it. It's great. This is what boggles my mind about Yoko Kanno. I was doing as much research as I could possibly find, and there's not a ton of information. I mean, well, you know, there's enough for me to be like, this is crazy. She studied piano and organ when she was young. She did not go to school for music. The thing that amazes me about Yoko Kanno and her writing is she's not coming from jazz specifically. She's not coming from classical specifically. She is a sponge of all types of different influences and genres. Without a formal education from a conservatory, she has a knack for nailing the authenticity of any style she's trying to write. In the process of doing research, I've checked out some music from a couple of her other works and other animes and things like that, and I'm just blown away by the literacy in various genres. For myself, I mean, I'm coming from jazz, and I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of jazz history and the feel and the do a reasonably good service to representing that. But if you stuck me into a pop group, there's a lot of intricacies of pop music that I probably don't know. It's not that I can't learn them, but it's just that, you know, the majority of my listening, the majority of my background is not in that space. I'm not as fluent in the ins and outs of that particular style. Yoko Kanno has managed to create soundtracks that vary so greatly. It's really amazing the level of authenticity that she has managed to achieve in various styles. It's really, really incredible. Side note, I want to point out her story about taking a Greyhound bus from West Coast to East Coast to explore, you know, American music, and her stories about as she got closer and closer to the East Coast, the musicians seemed to swing harder. That's hilarious because it's the classic thing of like New York jazz versus West Coast jazz, right? Everybody that learned in New York and learned in the East Coast, like we all think that East Coast jazz is just so much more gritty and real and swings harder, and it's just, of course, you know, it's just a sound rivalry thing, I guess. It's funny. I read in an interview that she had said that, and I think this is just another example of what we were talking about before, where Yoko Kanno has done her homework so much on various types of music that anything she attempts to tackle, she does just an incredible service to the style, and it's extremely authentic, and I think a great representation of whatever particular vibe or style she's trying to tackle with any given piece. Talk about having one person be depth of exploring various styles and different influences, you can listen to Yoko Kanno's music and experience everything from things influenced by Gustav Holst, John Barry, Cal Basie. I mean, it goes incredibly in depth. Not to mention her experience with pop music and probably pretty much everything else. It's very, very cool to see, and this has just been a pleasure to dive into some of this stuff. So thank you guys for recommending it, and be sure to tell me what you recommend that I check out next down in the comments below. Hey everybody, Future Me here. I am really excited and super proud to tell you about my new course. Now, some of you may know about it already, a lot of you may not, but in case you haven't heard, I finally have a course out, and it is an intro to improvisation. If you've ever wanted to just be able to sit down at your instrument and be able to play anything you want, this course will start you down that path and give you all of the outlines of everything you'll need to know that you'll need to practice as you move forward through this journey. It's available right now, and it is thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Right now, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description down below are going to get a free trial of Skillshare Premium Access, where you can go and access my course. So you can check that out as part of a free trial. And that's just the beginning. Skillshare, of course, is the online learning platform with thousands of courses on all types of topics for creative and curious people. Things ranging from design to illustration and video production and freelancing. Skillshare offers classes that are designed for everything that comes with it. You'll be inspired to do more, create more, and perhaps most importantly, be exposed to a community of millions of like-minded, creative, and curious people. It is an incredible resource, and it is available all for less than $10 a month with a premium annual subscription. And once again, right now, if you go and use the link down in the description below, the first 1,000 people.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
I never really envisioned that Deckard Cain would become as popular as he became. I mean, he was always a really big father figure or whatever for your character, and so I wanted him to be your guide and your mentor, giving you help along the way.
If you come across challenges and questions to knowledge, seek me out, and I will tell you what I can.
My name is Gubaev, lead programmer on Diablo, and this is how a show of hands turned Diablo from a turn time.
I feel this hero.
I got into video games at a very early age. My dad brought home an Apple II Plus in maybe 1979. Started learning to program at that time. Before that, we had the original Pong machine and the Atari 2600, but program really became a passion once the Apple II came around, and I learned how to program, taught myself to program on the Apple II Plus. That was kind of the start of my career, and it was a passion that never really left me. I wanted to do nothing but make video games my entire life ever since I sat down and started programming. So work began on Diablo probably in earnest in late 1993. We created a company, and my friends and I, who I'd met at a previous company. We started pitching Diablo to a bunch of different places. The game was always titled Diablo. The name Diablo comes from a mountain here in the San Francisco Bay Area that I lived at the base of that mountain called Mount Diablo. I didn't speak any Spanish, so once I found out what the name meant for the mountain, then I said, hey, that's going to make a great video game name someday. We pitched it as Diablo, and the name never really left. Blizzard first became involved when we got together for a trade show. It was a Consumer Electronics Show, and we were showing off Justice League Task Force. We were doing the Sega Genesis version, and then another development company was working on the Super Nintendo version. We didn't realize that there was a Super Nintendo version of it, and they didn't realize that there was a Genesis version of it. So we didn't share any kind of design or anything like that, or any kind of assets or whatever. But strangely, the games were were very similar. They looked like they could have been developed in tandem, and so the two companies instantly kind of merged over our design sensibilities and our graphic style and everything like that. They changed their name from Silicon and Synapse to Blizzard Entertainment. They said, okay, well, we're working on this title, come take a look, and I went to their little meeting room that they had rented, and they showed off Warcraft, work complete. And they said, yeah, we're also looking for other titles, so we're looking to work with people that we think are good developers. And I said, well, we've got a great game idea, but nobody wants to, you know, do this, so are you guys? They said, well, after we finish Warcraft 1, we'll come out and you can pitch us. And they then agreed to do Diablo. So at the time, PC RPGs in general were kind of in a very strange state. Sales had really declined on any kind of RPG at the time, and even though that was a huge genre earlier, when we went to go pitch Diablo to a bunch of different places, we got rejected 20 plus times. But we knew that this was an unusual kind of style of RPG. In a lot of ways, we wanted to kind of make the antithesis of what RPGs were at the time. We went out of our way to do that, to make sure that the graphics weren't elves and dragons. We wanted to make it, you know, very different than that. We wanted to make sure that the style of game it was much more like the way that I used to play Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. I didn't really care so much about the story and things like that and Dragons. For me, it was much more about the loot. It was much more about getting the awesome Vorpal swords and stuff like that. And so I wanted a game that was ringing true with, a game that was more about, you know, killing monsters and getting cool loot than having a long story with a deep character customization and stuff like that. I wanted to focus more on the action side and more on the loot side. And so we felt like we had a great idea that separated us from the crowd. But I think that a lot of people, especially a lot of people in publishing at that time, weren't necessarily gamers. A lot of them were just businessmen who had learned that this genre isn't selling anymore. I don't care what kind of game you're pitching me. And so getting to pitch the game to people that were actually gamers, that were publishers in Blizzard, was a kind of breath of fresh air, and they understood the vision and ultimately
Материальников, начальники, писали. Чего? Ну, спать, 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 спать. Я не знаю. О, кто это? Кто это я? Что там? Чепюськи, чепюськи. Так вот, чтобы стать. Опа, куда пойдешь? Ничего, это стул же не знаю, что самое. Ладно, записался, что-то не хватает. я приеду, туда меня возьмут, везде возьмут. Наоборот. Не понимаю, господин, нет. А, они все в своем, в шиве, бане, как говорится. Они уже достали, просто что-то непонятно, я понял. В смысле, если в своем, если носки у тебя не стираны, еще что-нибудь там. Нормально, у меня все постирано, кстати, забудь. Поехали. А бытие твое, бытие, житие. Может, бытуешь ты? Нет, что ли? Не, я тебе про работу говорю, вообще ни о чем. Ну, я просто, что меня на работу не берут, вроде берут, то ли черт его поймет вообще. Ну, надо ехать. Если ты видишь, то да. Не то, что гарантия какая-то. Ну да, типа, как это. И это нормально, понимаешь? Еще один секрет. Живешь ты в любом городе. Зачем поступать в консерваторию Москвы и Московской области? Какой сейчас? Нет, он про это и говорит. Ну, а злой тебя говорит, ну нет, это себе так думает. Вот это имеется в виду, да. Как бы, да, понимает он тебя просто. Это как бы не бывает так, понятно? Так политики что-то все время делят, как будто бы, да, то есть, ну, с позволения жадных людей, которые хотят задарможить. То есть народа, как бы, скажем так. Понимаю, да. А на самом деле, как бы, все хорошо, оно остается, понимаешь? Вот дети, которых народили, которые добрые, они разойдутся, или на месте будут сидеть, или по свету разойдутся. Но на месте вряд ли есть нормальный человек здоровый, потому что ноги есть. Если мужик, то, ну, ты по делам все равно куда-то пойдешь. Если ты нормальный, ты вот сидишь в сюмсях, а если ты начнешь развиваться, поедешь куда, не просто в столицу, ты куда-то поедешь по делам просто уже. Ты понимаешь, но это уже ваша проблема. То есть все равно рано или поздно так начнется быть, понимаешь, да. Это нормально. В здоровом виде, как бы, да. Да. И окажется в Нью-Йорке потом, если повезет, если доживет. Если мама добрая была. Достаточно, простите. Ладно, неважно. Да, то есть, ну да, я понял. То есть, как бы, ну, я к тому, что все дела международные, но почему-то они все начинаются всегда на Западе. И оттуда они как бы приходят. То есть, как бы, вот человек, ну, понимаешь. То есть, как бы, да. То есть, ты можешь мотыга, кстати, не оттуда пришла, естественно. Ну, и хрен знает, да ну. Ты можешь делать что угодно, короче, да, но все равно оно все приходит с Запада и потом адаптируется везде. Понимаешь, да. И все равно так, и идеи приходят, и все. Я не знаю, почему так, как так сделано. Когда ты начинаешь что-то делать, дело не в том, что Запад, ты начинаешь что-то делать, и ты идешь куда-то вот на Запад, получается. Ну вот куда-то в другое место ты перемещаешься, куда-то там, да, в эпицентры какие-то мозговые, мужество, там, где ты как бы не силен, где ты, король, вот едь в Сюмси, ты там будешь гениальным просто человеком, да. Там и пирожки дешевле стоят, да, понимают, и нормально, да, дети пасутся, и все. Ну да, то есть, как бы мечта идиота называется, ну наоборот. Ну нет, я просто объясняю, что жить, ну как бы, ну чё, блин, что можно жить, что нормально, ничего страшного в том, что ты уезжаешь, нету, надо просто работать. Зачем-то надо ехать, а не просто так, потому что, ну даже в свинском варианте можно просто на быт уехать куда-то, потому что они типа там дешевле, типа. Но я думаю, ты поплачешься за это сам, да. Смотри сам, короче, все равно придется доказывать потом, да, понятно. И ты всем людям сделаешь нормально, если ты будешь делать дела нормально. Тогда ты будешь на Западе, и потом все будут во всех странах повторять, в том числе здесь. Понимаешь? Да. И тогда будет нормально что-то, понимаешь? Тогда действительно, то есть как бы это не обсуждаемо, я тебе просто объясняю. Но так или иначе, положишь настоящий кирпичик, ну даже маленький, но настоящий, да, понимаешь, да. То есть не то, что ты что-нибудь там повторил в сюмсях, как будто там на западный станок купил, там типа того, да. То есть, понимаешь, короче. Ну, найдешь, короче, да. Тебе монумент, ну понимаешь, то, что мы, ну не важно, я понял просто. Политический монумент, потому что так-то все вообще набивается. Я не касается, да. Наоборот, я понял, просто тоже наоборот. Ну наоборот, да, естественно, здесь это всем очень определитесь сразу, да. Я просто говорю, вот, то есть, ничего в этом, ну и что, ну и что? Ну хорошо, значит все хорошо. А наоборот, ну, то есть плохо, что ты, ну, про это говорил тебе, да нет, а что хорошего? Да работа просто, да, ну и что? Вот, ну, я про себя и говорю, ну, типа того, да. Это про себя. Не знаю, надо будет разберешься, да. Ну, нет, не факт, конечно. Про себя так думаю. Здорово, я уже знаю это все, просто здорово. Я 1000 раз уже это все говорил, я тебя понял. Это не важно, я говорю, что можно, да, то есть, в чем проблема-то, да, то, что ты обвинить меня хочешь, что ли, в чем? Ну как, на себя, да, хорошо, да. Тогда, да, вот это про себя и думает тогда. Вот это. Ну, да, короче, ну, поймешь, короче, да, вот это здорово. Можешь себя не беспокоиться, короче, да. Вернешь потом, да. Просто работать надо, отработаешь и все. То есть это все намного лучше, чем ты ожидал. Нет, не надо, конечно. очень долгие разговоры. Единственное, значит, дело настоящее дело это политика, все остальное как бы не дело. Единственное настоящее, да. Так его нету вообще, таких дел вообще нету, просто там вообще ничего. Да. Нет. Для идиотов, которым делать нехрен просто, да. Для самых, для всяких обидчиков, дармоедов, женщина здесь, причем кто просил ее защищать? Кто просил, да? Работать надо. У нее это все на халяву просто, потому что ну хорошо, защищать. Вот и все, да. Ну, условно скажем, да. Ну, да. Ты не сможешь все сделать. Делай свое дело нормально. Да, себя отвечает. Кто-то уже такой был, который такая сделала добро всему миру. Ну так вот, да. Да, вообще такое. Ну, понятно, да. Ну да, фаут, свое дело делай по-настоящему, да, вот так вот, типа, там, может, да, превратило уже, да, просто надоело просто. Ну, что понравилось, берешь, так за деньги, с развитием. И в форму бизнеса перекочевать, да, получается. Вот это тоже интересно, буддийская мудрость, да? То есть, ну, совершенно понимает, да? В большом это все не надо. Да, ты же наизусть уже выучил, да? Понял тебя же. Жизнь прожить надо, знаешь? смотря как ты посмотришь, да, то есть ну, труд человеческий берешь, будет добро, ну, наоборот, там уже нет, у нас все нормально, как раз у нас очень, понимаешь, да, мы, да, просто пользоваться. Слишком беззаботно живешь, может, хорошо, ну там ты там тоска, короче, да, понимаешь, такая. Можно намного лучше просто. И все, никто не понимает, что это. Да, в рекламе что ли видел, что я понял. Можно дела делать, в смысле, да? Просто, да, то есть, чуть-чуть. Сессиone. Лучше, чем вчера, однако, да. Это что, сам Молиться уже надо было просто. Нет, наоборот. там никому это не нужно. Почему, смотри, почему неряха, да, реально, вот как бы, да, неряха, да, понимаю, Импульс. У меня да. Да, еще играть надо. Чтобы это важность. Затарный, товарный. Нет, совершенно наоборот, потому что нет, если ты женат, тогда еще как-то хорошо их все равно. По идее, как-то так, да. Долго. Нет, у него просто... Пульсатурой. Радость.